Hi everyone, welcome to the Foreco. In today's video we're going to take a little look at Tottenham Hotspur's transfer window activity and we're going to look at it in more general terms, so not necessarily a player for player review, although we will look at the players that have come in and we'll be looking at overall what that means for the club going forward this season. To start off with, I know that a lot of people are not very happy at all about the business that's been done. I should caveat this by saying the transfer window closes at 11 p.m. tonight, so there is still time for a Rafa van der Vaart style last minute major signing, but most people have been pointing to the fact that that's unlikely unless obviously something happens within the market where an existing target, someone Tottenham already had on their list that they were already looking at, becomes available, or there's a massive price drop, or there's an opportunity that can't be turned down. So the first thing about our transfer window is you can really start to feel the data-led approach. So some of the signings that are coming in, they are not the kind of signings that traditionally Tottenham have gone for. So looking at Odegaard, for example, he's one that obviously there was no talk about whatsoever, and it was done absolutely silently, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it feels like he was a really data-led signing. So they looked at all the things that we'll talk about in a second in terms of his age profile, but also his output for Burnley and prior to that, and it felt like they had identified him quite early on, and from what Ange just said, he was somebody that they were looking at from the very beginning of the window, along with Dom Solanke. And they thought that he was the 1v1 take-on specialist that they wanted and needed, and obviously he fits within a certain price bracket. You could obviously have gone and looked at a Nico Williams, who did have a release clause, so he would have been affordable from a finance point of view, but his terms and his own desire on whether he would have come to a club like Tottenham Hotspur might have meant that that was an unrealistic transfer anyway. I'd be surprised if they didn't sound him out to his representatives anyway, but given the interest around him in Spain without having to move and how happy he is, it never felt like it was realistic. So Odegaard comes in, exciting debut, looks very good, and if he can continue kind of a sharp learning curve, then you've got a data-led decision to the profile of player that we're looking for in terms of general age, and could be someone very exciting for us. I think on both the data and the youth profile, you can see that across all the transfers we've made, maybe barring Dom Solanke. Maybe he is a data-based signing. But if you look at Archie Gray and Luca Berrival, those two are definitely ones that were highly coveted by many of the top clubs. So everybody was looking at them, but we've stepped forward and we've managed to secure them. And they are not only young, so they do reduce the average age of our team and our squad, but they are first team ready. So Archie Gray played a lot of football in the Championship, and he's somebody who we can be very excited about coming in, and it's not just getting minutes for him at a Premier League level, but he can contribute in various positions. So Archie Gray coming in, Berrival coming in, these are exciting signings for us for the future, but they can definitely play this season. And I understand that people say we haven't improved the first team barring Solanke. I disagree. I feel that these two can come in, they can do a job, and we're definitely seeing that Ange is trusting these players. Whereas last season there was a lot of criticism, we weren't giving young players minutes, Ange wasn't changing things up, he was too late to change things up. He evidently didn't trust his squad. We've had a huge turnover of players, and now Ange is showing that in the 65th minute he's willing to make lots of changes, and he's also willing to trust these young players to come on, and they've looked very good. And so hopefully that again is something that those guys can go on a journey together. So when you get a young group of players who are all pushing each other and they're all learning and developing at the same time, sometimes you get a really virtuous cycle of improvement across the playing staff. So those young players will improve together. So that's Otter Bear and Archie Gray and Berry Val and the other young players in the team and the squad, so they can really go on a journey together, which is very exciting for Tottenham. I get it. Some people think that it's not win now, it's not going to get us over the line. They're not going to be the ones that can take control of games where things aren't going our way, or in the big matches against some of the bigger clubs where you might need that bit more experience. What I would say is that there is a fearlessness to young players which can benefit you in some of those situations. And also, we should look at the players we've signed over the last few seasons as we've been reducing the age of our team and our squad. We have got results against some of the big teams. We can point to Man City away and the 3-3 draw. Despite lots of challenges, we've still got some very young players who are making a difference in those games. And Mickey van der Ven's a great example of a young player who's come in and he looked up and ready last year, and he's still got plenty of trajectory as well, but he's still a young player. So reducing the age of the squad and the team seems to have been a focus, and that obviously makes sense with Ange's high energy, high line, high pressing, very fast paced style. You're going to need younger players and really good engines to do that. The data-led approach, as we discussed, Dominic Solanke's an interesting one. He might well be somebody who we didn't necessarily expect to be number one on our striker list, and he may or may not have been number one on the striker list. Lots of people would argue that someone like Ivan Toney would have been a slightly better fit in terms of winning games in the short term. But if the staff and the recruitment team think that Dom Solanke's overall stats are as good, or if he can do a job, if his pressing is better, which I do think is what Solanke has over Toney, and certainly in terms of an attitude and a fit and that profile of player that Ange really likes, which is the chip on the shoulder. I've got something to prove, so I'm going to come in here to a club like Tottenham Hotspur and I'm going to do that. I think that's got merit to it as well. You can always see somebody who's got something to prove, who's going to train every day like it's their last training session, who's going to leave everything out there on the pitch. And I certainly think that Ivan Toney may or may not have fit that kind of thing. And I think what's also interesting is that nobody else has stumped up for Toney in the meantime, and it's all the way down to deadline day to see whether anything happens. So that in itself is quite interesting. It's not just Tottenham Hotspur, so when we as fans criticise Tottenham for the business they do or normally don't do, it's interesting that lots of the other clubs haven't moved for some of the players that Tottenham fans are clamouring for. So that's to take into consideration now. I think the other thing I'd say about the transfer window for us is the multitude of positions that many of these players can play in. So we are giving ourselves lots of options to differentiate who's going into which position and what they're going to provide when they go into that position. We've seen that with Decky, who was predominantly playing out on the right, and I think there could still be a role for him playing on the right-hand side when we need to secure the ball against certain teams. I think he was brilliant at that against Arsenal last year. Even though we didn't perform very well, he as an individual performed very well in securing the ball and giving us an outlet when we were getting penned in. But he's also showing that he can play in that 8/10 role. I think particularly as an 8, he's looking very exciting. Shades of, dare I say it, Moussa Dembele in that number 8 position. And he showed brilliant feet for Bissouma's goal last week, where he got himself into the box. They were terrified of touching him, showed really, really quick feet, and then a nice weighted layoff for Bissouma to score. So multitude of positions for Decky are possible. I think you've got the same thing with Odebear. Odebear could in theory play across any of the wide and even through the middle positions. There's an argument you could stick him up top if you need to turn teams around. I know that's not a very popular tactic, but it can happen. We actually did it quite well against Aston Villa last season. So we were knocking balls in behind because they played a very high line. And even though we didn't get a result in that game, we actually played very well given all the injuries we had. And we had a very pragmatic approach of trying to knock it in behind and turn them around. So that could work. There's an argument that Timo Werner, who's also come in He's obviously a returning member, but Timo Werner could do the same thing, right? He's probably best down the left now. I think that's his best position for Tottenham. But there's the option of playing him up front as a quick, pacey player in behind if we want to do that kind of thing as well. I think we can also look at some of the other players. Our midfield players all can rotate in and out of the six. I don't think any of them is a dyed-in-the-wool defensive midfielder that a lot of people have been asking for and clamouring for. And yeah, I think I'd agree. I think we do either need to upgrade in terms of the playing staff, or we need to improve on the players that are playing in those defensive positions. And if that midfield three of the 6 and 2 8s, or a 6 8 and a 10 are going to rotate, and it's going to be a very total football, very natural rotation between those three, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. But what we need to see from those players is better responsibility and better understanding on the transition in the counter-attack. We saw it time and time again last season where, for example, Bissouma is not aware of what's behind him, not aware of what's going on around him. He's not I don't like the running lines or the angles that we are taking out, and that's not just Biss. I think a lot of our players actually didn't do that particularly well last season. I'd really like to see an improvement on our, in inverted commas, scramble defense, to borrow an NFL term. When players are retreating, I want to see them take up high percentage positions that make it as challenging for the opposition as possible, as opposed to just blindly running back as fast as you can. Because at Premier League and elite European level, the teams have shown they will find a way around that. It's not good enough just being back, which may be enough at a lower level. You've got to be in a position to really affect the play. I think an easy example to use for that Tottenham fans will still be sweating over, we'll be thinking about Van Dijk against Moussa Sissoko, where Van Dijk made a decision on his positioning when Moussa Sissoko was going through 1v1 against Liverpool, and Van Dijk thought about the player, he thought about the context of this. He didn't choose to go up against Sissoko physically, Sissoko being a rare example of a player who could give Van Dijk a decent battle physically, but he thought about the skill set of the player and his positioning, and he invited Sissoko on that left-hand side. Can you beat Alisson on your left foot from there, or can you cut inside and take me on? And he was validated. He got that right, and that is that elite top level. He made a decision, and I'll talk about this a lot. When you make a decision, the consequences are on you. So whether that's defensively in midfield or in attack, whether it's a pass or whether it's you choosing to finish instead of pass the ball, top level players, they make decisions, and more times than not they get those decisions right. So that's what we're looking for from Tottenham Hotspur, particularly from a defensive perspective. I'll be really interested this season to follow how we get on with that defence against transition. And so overall, am I happy with the transfer window? I am relatively happy with the transfer window. I think we've done some good business. I can see a coherent strategy, data-led approach. I can see a strategy on reducing the median age of the team, which I like and I agree with, and we were successful the last time we did that with Pochettino. And I can definitely see some gaps, which everybody is acutely aware of. But if I look at the squad and I compare it to last season, I go back to the fact that Ange trusts his bench more than he did last year. I think we have taken a step forward. We've not stood still. We've not taken a backward step. Could we have done more? Yes. Would I have loved to see Eze, just like everybody else? Yes. As competition for Johnson actually on the right hand side. So slightly different role. But these are dream signings. We'd love to see them. We'd love to see a bit of left back or left centre back cover, possibly a 6, which everyone's talking about. We have brought in a decent striker upgrade, and I think Richarlison and Solanke is a good pair to go in. And then hopefully we've got Lancashire to come in and get minutes as well, because it doesn't look like he's going out on loan. So that's very exciting. And the only other thing I'll say about the lack of depth at centre half and left back is that multiple positions being played by different players. It seems that Archie Gray provides cover at right back, potentially at centre half as well. Jed Spence provides cover at right back and at left back. He was brought on ahead of Ben Davies, and then what that probably signals to me is that Ange trusts excuse me, Ben Davies in that left centre back position more than he would do in the inverted fullback position. So Ben Davies then provides left centre back cover. I know people think that he's probably not good enough for that role, but he's still an excellent professional. And then you've got, for example, Alfie Dorrington, who's coming back, and if he doesn't go out on loan, which I don't think he will, come back from injury, it could be a situation where there are some minutes in it for him as well. So you've got Dragushin, who is clearly a promising and a talented player, and then you've got Dorrington, you've got Ben Davies. Yes, we could upgrade. Yes, we could have done better as ever. But I still feel that the squad has taken a step forward. The team with Solanke has taken a step forward, and Odobert. And I think that Gray and Berryville are to be very excited about over the years. So again, we're putting pieces in place, and it may be a bit more in January and a bit more next summer, and fans don't want it. Takes too long. I need it now. I need to win now. But let's see how the season gets on. So overall, I'm glass half full as opposed to glass half empty, but that doesn't mean that my glass is overflowing, so to speak. So that's my roundup. That's how I see the transfer window. I'm not losing my mind yet. We've got 2 hard games coming up against Newcastle and Arsenal. We'll see how our squad fares against those 2 clubs. Traditionally very difficult fixtures for us, or Newcastle away certainly has been recently. So let's see how we get on. Let me know your thoughts. Drop some comments below on how you feel. I've seen a lot of people not very happy, but looking at it from a technical and a tactical aspect, how do you feel about the squad? What are you thinking about Tottenham going ahead in the future? Thanks everybody. Have a great day, and here's to a great weekend. Hopefully we get a result against Newcastle. I'll be back with a video looking ahead to that fixture. Cheers. Bye.